All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to ACSM Online Week 2020. And today I have Rosalyn with me, and we have a very, very interesting topic. Hi, Rosalyn.
Hi.
And Rosalyn has been a retired professional for the past 11 years ago. She was previously part of the management team in the IT industry. And Rosalyn has been a business coach since the year 2011, trained by Newfield, as well as a certified CSA coach supervisor 2018. And for the past 6 years, you have been in the hospital pastoral care and counseling ministry, and 2 years certified grief and end of life coach. So you mentioned to me earlier that your gift and life calling is actually to support the grieving. Yeah. So, Rosalyn, can you share with us, what is actually grief and end of life coaching? Is it targeted more on the person who is about to leave this world or people who are close to them? What is that really all about?
Actually, it's both. But most of my focus and activities is set in the hospital background. So majority of the time, I work with the sick actually. And of course, on a personal level, each time there's someone whom I know whose loved one passed away or they're grieving in some way, those are also my focus. So in short, relevant for both.
Okay. It's a very unique coaching field because for me, I'm actually in the areas of business coaching and executive coaching. Can you share with us on how is this relevant for us, especially as an executive coach?
I guess to your question, I want to ask you, when you say that it's business coaching, who or what exactly are you coaching at? Is it the person or is it the issue, or something like that? So who to be a coach? What exactly are we coaching on?
I see. Yeah, it's
The person, right?
component.
Yeah, correct. And whether is it business coaching or is it grief coaching or life coaching or whatsoever, our coaching 101, as all of us know, is really about the person. And when it comes to business, a lot of times we're all human. So at some point of time, maybe the client or your coachee is undergoing some personal grieving stuff, and it affects their performance. It also affects your coaching at the time when you're with them, right?
Sure.
So that is why this is very relevant. It is a holistic approach. You coach the being. As in all our coaching, we always say focus on the being, right? Because we are all human. But I think one of the reasons why I want to touch on this today also is if you look at ICF, right now when we talk about ICF competencies, we always talk about ICF and the 11 competencies, right? You know what? I think they're going to start from next year. They are going to reduce it to 8. And the 8 is all going, a lot of focus is actually about the being and the emotions and so on and so forth. So voila. Maybe we can start this off in preparation of next year. Yeah, so this is, I hope this session will be helpful to all of us.
All right. And how handy is the grief and end of life coaching in the world of business coaching, especially, you mentioned that, sometimes we coach on the person itself. But based on your past experience, how often do you encounter this and how do you see the importance of this?
I guess for myself, because I do it day in, day out, so of course it's very relevant. But having said that, my husband, at a personal level, my husband is also an executive coach, a business coach. And very often, you'll be surprised how many times you come across his coaches who is going through the emotion because, the husband just suddenly die, right? It's sudden death. And also sometimes you come across executives who maybe, one of their loved one maybe met an accident or something, which they, especially for Asians, I do not know about. I should say, especially for Asians, we deem these kind of things as oh, bad omen, and so on and so forth. So it's stuck in their mind, and when they go to office, it's there. And therefore, it definitely affects them. And as a business coach, when you yourself can sense their being in this at the point of time, voila, that is the time when you really can coach them in that area before they can even move into other, into their job, into their, performance and things like that.
So, Rosalyn, I definitely agree that there'll be a time for us as a coach that we'll be encountering this particular situation with our coachee. Can you share with us what should we do as a coach when we are faced in this situation?
Wow. Actually, for business coaching and grief coaching, it is all the same. More except the only exception is the language we use. I want to thank my personal supervisor, Elaine Patterson. I missed her class last night because I was having my own evening tuition class. She's the one, a couple of years ago when I was doing the course, she's the one who actually make it become the core focus, language. Language in end of life, in grief coaching, the theme is on gentleness. I laugh because when we talk about business coaching, it's a totally, touch altogether, right? You have to be deemed effective, effective, professional, so and so forth. You don't really bring emotion into the story. I can tell you that perception, how wrong we are. So in terms of business coaching and grief coaching, in essence, it's the same. The key focus is really the language of gentleness, of being with them, being with that. And therefore, the kind of emotion is slightly different, but actually it's the same to me. Yeah.
How do we create the space? Do we allow them to speak up and express out all their emotions? How do we start it off with?
Okay. It is just now I mentioned it is actually the same in coaching, right? And you're right. I like the word that you brought up, the space. In both in this area of coaching, we always make sure we create a safe space as in our coaching. But what exactly do we mean by space, safe space? A lot of times it's really for them. The right, I want to use the term, the right is theirs. They can do whatever they want, inverted commas. They can say what they want, they can cry whenever and however long they want. Or if sometimes on occasions, they might just not say anything at all. It's really up to them. The space is totally theirs. And as coaches, very important when we talk about safe space, what is the criteria for us as coaches? Number one, don't judge. Never judge. And the worst part is because even in the new supervision, new coaching nowadays, we always talk about the empathy. We always talk about understanding, knowing, in inverted commas, what they are going through. Wrong. Because each individual, we are all different. We grieve and we in different ways. So some people, they might put an outward show. And if, let's say you are a coach, it's their right. If they want to put an outward show, it's their right. It's not for you to judge, to say, oh, it shouldn't be the way. Because I am taught, in inverted commas, that they should grieve through, go through the process versus walking away from the process. So therefore, if this person is holding a front, oh, he's holding a front. No, it's their right because timing is theirs. It's really for them. So when we talk about, in coaching, when you talk about safe space, here, it is 100% of the emphasis. Their space, their time, their right.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So you mentioned about the space and everything else. So for those of you who have just arrived, today we have Rosalyn with us, and we're talking about grief and end of life coaching. If you have any question in a short while, I'll be actually opening up for questions. You can ask any questions to Rosalyn regarding to this topic. And by the way, Rosalyn, what's the way of being of a coach? when we are in a space with this person?
Interesting. One of the trainings, or rather say the training that I went through, one of the key emphasis is not talking.
Mm.
Indeed, they actually use a timer, and then they will time how long you keep your silence. I laugh because try that yourself. It's not easy. But in this area of coaching, that is the key emphasis. Just now I mentioned that it is their right for everything, right? And even sometimes, and it's very common that when your coach is telling you what happened, and then a lot of times memories will emerge.
Okay.
They will go on and on and on and on. Never interject. Oh, is that so? Oh, is it like that? Is it so? Because sometimes as coaches, we have our own experience, or maybe we hear stories of somebody else, and then you interject and bring it into their story. Silence is the key.
Even to the point of paraphrasing, we don't do that.
Because yeah, indeed, in coaching, in our coaching training, paraphrasing sometimes is a lot of times is used to show our presence, right? To show that we are there. For example, this is some of the concepts that I know some training schools teach, but in this area, we use a lot of facial expression. Not expression of surprise or things like that, but facial expressions of being there with them. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess maybe this is a good time to highlight maybe some of the concepts of or rather say some of the memes of grieving and so on and so forth. I think one of the things that I come across a lot is a lot of times people think that grief and mourning is the same. Actually, it's different.
What's the difference?
The difference is grieving is actually an internal, is from within ourselves. And mourning, of course, then is an external expression. And this is something very important for business arenas as well. A lot of times in business, when somebody show a lot of emotions or crying or whatsoever, we always think it's wrong, and it's not a manly thing to do, I bet you. It is more than a man who can really express or allow their feelings, especially when they are undergoing a grief situation where somebody close to them just died, or maybe sometime they lose the job. Yeah. So it's also a loss, and therefore it is not. I want to use the word not correct to judge that it is not good. I can tell you that is the key to recovering from grief. You must allow it to come out, not submerge it. So this is the key for healing, actually.
Do we look for ways to get them to make it come up, or it has to be natural?
It can be both. When you say look for ways to make it come out, is of course the space for them to do so, the safe space for them to do so must be there. It can be with coaches, like any of our coaches, or any of our coaches means even business coach who knows this area, this supporting area, or even their relatives or anyone close, but they must be able to provide the safe space. Just now I mentioned, what do we mean by safe space, right? Safe space, right? It's the right, their right to do whatever they want, exception is, of course, if they harm themselves or, if they harm others. That's a different story altogether.
I see. And how do we know that is at which point is the right time for us to move them forward? Is there certain areas to look for that?
I guess this then is the right time for bring up. I think for coaches, a lot of us are trained on the the Kubler-Ross cycle of stages of grief and so on. So it's very common, and the belief has always been that the person will start with denial and blah blah blah, and then you move into acceptance. Actually, no.
Oh.
So that ties to your question of when, and the word you use to move them on. No, don't move them on. It's at their timing. And I want to bring the word again one more time. Move them through, not move them on.
Okay.
Maybe then it's a good time to say what does it mean by move them through rather than moving on. When we say move on, what do we mean? A lot, and it's very common, a lot of relatives or even somebody close to them will say, oh, move on, get out of it, time to move on. That usually entails to, doing something, let's do something, keep ourselves busy, then the pain will go away. Actually, it helps, but for a short while, because the pain will come back, the grief will come back. So whereas when we say moving through, it literally means give them the space. Again, I wanted to say the space of their right to do, to express anger, crying, and so on and so forth. Actually, the chart, the grief chart or emotional charts that we use for this area is totally different. I rather say slightly different from Kubler's chart. The emotions are all mixed up. Today a few days, tomorrow a few days, and then you think you're, inverted commas, okay, and then suddenly the emotion comes back again. Tons of emotions, and the emotions involved is more than just the 5-6 emotions under the Kubler chart. We have a lot. We have things, jealousy, of course, resentment is one of those that is in the chart itself. And then you have things like fear, and so on and so forth. It's a mixture of tons of other emotions, not just the few that we normally come across.
I see. Okay. We have a question from Lei Ping Lim. What if the coachee cries non-stop? So how do the coach handle that?
I laugh because it is quite common. And sometimes as coaches, we ask, why did I, inverted commas, why did my powerful question got her into that state and then you want to get out of it? So in realistic, if they really cry a lot by right, by right, you really need to give them the space to cry. But actually, I want to highlight this also. If you take out your time, for example, somebody is crying, and to you it's like crying non-stop, right? You time, you see how long it is. Usually it's not that long, lah.
Okay.
But because you are there and your emotions are with them, and some of us, like myself, I'm a very visual person. You can see and you can feel, then you feel as if it's like forever. But actually it's very short time. Most of the time they will stop. So it is, to me, this question is real and yet not real because it's a perception. I can tell you the next time you experience, start timing it and then you see it's really not long. Your coaching is 1 hour. You time it, probably is less than a minute or a minute. But I'm very glad this question comes because it shows that you are in it and you're into the same emotion as them. And you feel like it's forever.
Right.
Hope that helps.
Yep, definitely, Rosalyn. In terms of the space and we wait, right? Is there a completion to grief? Like, or we just, all right, cool, natural, like, okay, when it's time, we will just know it. But would there be a completion to it?
Actually, in grief coaching, it is quite like the CSA. For some of you who have seen through some of these coaching models where we have terms like walking the park, walking the garden. In essence, in this area of coaching, grief coaching, we are not. Indeed, we have to submit 2 sets of recording. One is pure grief and end of life. which actually there's no such thing as conclusion. However, for passing ICF coaching, we have to make sure that all the 11 competencies are there, including action, support, and things like that. The last few necessity in ICF certification. So the two models are slightly different. So to answer your question, there's no such thing as, so what would you, how is this coaching session helping you move forward or something? No, it's not. Usually, most of the time, they will stop themselves. And most of the time, it is more a time for them to let go of whatever that's in their mind. So the role of a coach for brief coach is really to support, not to inverted commas move them. They'll move on themselves. Especially when it comes to acceptance.
Okay. It's interesting that you mentioned the word support, and Marianne have a question on how do we ensure that we are not hijacked by the coach's emotion?
I think you can, to me, I feel you cannot help it. Probably a lot of times you will be hijacked. And most of the time, that's why I believe that in this area of gift coaching, most of the time it is a gift. A gift as in you are able to, inverted commas, be with them. Therefore, your emotions probably would be hijacked, like what you say. It is a natural phenomenon. But once you are out of the coaching, it is a gift that you do not hold with you and bring it back, and you become emotionally depressed yourself. So I think this would be, I have to emphasize that this area a lot of times is gift for you to go into this area.
Okay, cool. So once again, everyone, if you have any question, you can actually ask Rosalyn right now on the topic of grief and end of life coaching. By the way, Rosalyn, is there any other resources that if I want to learn more about this area, any particular training or guidance or resources that I can go to on this?
Yes, actually, in this part of the world, it's still not so popular yet, but it is very prominent in United States. And even for the key certifications, the one which I actually went through is called End of Life Coaching. It's literally, and it's run by a chaplain actually. And he is, and this is a ACTP course, which means to say, after you submit the 2 recordings, one is for the grief recording, the other is the ICF certification recording. Once you pass, you are ICF certified straight away. You do not need to submit another recording for ICF to go through and certify you. So this is called End of Life Coaching. You do a Google, you can find it. The second resource, I think there's it's also a certification, but it's run by an association. It's called Association of AED, Association of, I need to look it up, but something like Association of something deaf, you know. I can look it up and then probably we can post it later. That is also a former certification body for support of this area. Having said that, I believe that unless if you want to professionally go into this, you don't really need this. And I want to take this time, maybe for those who are interested, just to cover the most basic in when you come across this, especially if, let us say, oh, you'll be surprised. I come across 2 cases, executive coaches whose client, whose coachee, found out they have cancer and it's terminal. So as a coach, and they're still working and they are your business coachee, what are the things to focus on in that part of coaching in which is really terminal coaching already? There are 5 areas, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. 5 areas that normally, and I do it in hospital very often. The first area is really to support them in being ready to say, I am sorry. That is apologies. So the first thing is we're talking about they need to touch on apologies. I am sorry. Because in life, whether business or whatever, a lot of times, sometimes we do things that hurt other people. And you'll be surprised, they're very conscious, we know it. And at a point of time, I think it is a good time to make sure they are ready to say, I am sorry. Second thing is really forgiveness. Forgiveness, again, it is different areas. The first thing is start with yourself. Forgive yourself. And that is easier said than done. So at the point of time when they know that they don't have much time, this is very important because all these have got to do with the peace within to be ready to go. So when we say forgive ourselves is plain and simple. Of course, they themselves know what to forgive themselves. And of course, then they also need to learn to forgive others.
Okay.
So forgive themselves, forgive others. And the third thing is, of course, to say sometimes on occasions, they might want to say it face to face to someone that I forgive you. This is very important. Forgiveness is very important. So just now I mentioned about apologies and forgiveness, right? So this is already 2 points. The third point is really to thank you. Thank you may mean many things to different people. Some people, they thank God, they thank for a lot of things. And sometimes it's thanking their wives, their loved ones, their children, whatsoever. So it can be anything. And then the third thing is, of course, expression of love. They must have the chance to tell people, whoever, I love you. And that's very important because in acknowledging that, that's why it's a very emotional thing in this area. And of course, the last thing is really to say goodbye. How many times we always heard of people not having the chance to say goodbye, and it's very, very painful. This area sometimes is meant for the person who is going or who is dying, but a lot of times it's also meant for the person who didn't have a chance. How many of us say, my husband just left, died of heart attack. I don't even have a chance to say goodbye. Or sometimes their son, young person who maybe something happened and didn't have to. So when I say the chance to say goodbye, when we coach, it need not be physical. That means to say the chance actually to tell the other person I say goodbye. It can be a lot of things. Sometimes we support the person to say it in a dream or to say it during a meditation or to say it somehow or somewhere, or sometimes people build a memorial for the person and they talk to the person and things like that. So it is both physical, the real thing, and it could also be abstract. But you know what is important here? It carries a meaning for them. It is meaningful for that person, not for us as a coach, It is because it is not our story. It is always theirs.
Okay.
So because this is very, very important and these are basic, this is really the core basic of coaching for emotion, for grief and end of life. 5 pointers. Number 1, apologies. Number 2, forgiveness, forgiving ourselves, other people, as well as telling somebody directly. The third thing, of course, I say thank you, right? The last 2 things is I love you. And of course, goodbye. Yeah.
Okay.
So remember the 5 core.
Right. Listening. And maybe one last question is, how do we prepare ourselves, coach, like maybe before the session and after the session, is there anything that we need to do as a coach or not?
I hate to say that the more prepared you are, probably the worse coaching it would be. So in this area, when it touches on emotion, the core is really be yourself. But I have to say that if, let us say, sometimes we are caught unready, because we didn't ask for the area of coaching, but somehow maybe when the executive come in, we start crying and so on and so forth. So we are caught off guard. What is the best coaching method? Silence. Give them the space. I mentioned give them the space and time to say their story. And then once you go out, for example, if let us say you are you carry it with you, somehow you just couldn't let go and it bugs you, right? It keep coming to your mind. Go look for a coach yourself to coach you through. That is part and parcel of self-care.
Yeah. And then after that, it's more on like we can get support from supervisors, everything. We need to ground ourselves back as well, to center ourselves. Do you do any of those things after the session?
Yes, of course. And I mentioned that besides being a gift, that this is yours to take, yours to serve. I think the other practical, to be more practical, is as part and parcel of that emotion that we carry. Maybe like after we leave, somehow we are very affected by that session. You really need to go and maybe coach yourself or get a coach. Understand why the emotion stays with you for so long. A lot of times it is ourselves within. So therefore you have to attend to that inner effect, I think. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Rosalyn. I think it's a very, very insightful, and it opened up my eyes and to see and to get myself a bit more ready and open, if I were to face in this particular situation. That is actually definitely something natural and part of life, and how I as a coach can help another person. So thank you once again, Rosalyn.
It is my pleasure.
Yep, and thank you everyone for coming in today. Thank you for your time. I hope you have something fruitful and beneficial, and it supports you as your growth in your journey as a coach. So once again, thank you very much, and Coach Hanky signing off together with Rosalyn. All right,
it's
Rosalyn.
my honor. Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.